Patch time, basically all the information that you're just not going to get from watching the Kiriko video. If you want interesting details on each and every single change, you're going to go to that video. If you want my take and whether this is good for the game, bad for the game, and a lot of these changes are going to make a lot of sense, well, you're in the right place. I'm going to touch on a couple of details that aren't hero patch specific. One of those is going to be the practice range adjustments, which I think are really, really cool. You can check some of those out in game. Nothing crazy, but it's going to provide a little bit more aim training for at least the beginner players that might not be familiar with the custom game / workshop mode. There's tank bots, do with that information as you will. There's an ultimate generator as well. There's just in general, the practice range has been updated. The aiming training range is the big change, so I recommend checking that one out as well. One of the little detail that maybe folks didn't catch up on is the making progress one, where basically earning progression levels in the battle pass actually gives you credits to buy the next battle pass, to buy skins, and the credits is the real currency that counts, so that's kind of a nice change. And then the other one is the hero progression system, which I'm sure that you guys, if you've played any in the recent patch, you've kind of seen this one out. Basically, it's just giving you opportunity to generate and to earn titles for different characters that you play more of. Some of the titles are actually pretty cool. Recommend checking that one out as well. But those are the ones that I think were deserving of mention that you're not going to find information on necessarily elsewhere. The other thing as well is the Kiriko TP bug seems to have been addressed, or at least they said that they fixed a lot of aspects on it. And the other one is the armor change. So basically this prevents armor from stacking with other sources of damage reduction up to a maximum cap of 50%. Now there's two characters that this really impacts, and this one is Ramatra and Orisa. Orisa with Fortify is not able to basically stack her armor damage reduction with the Fortify damage reduction. It's flat at whatever Fortify is at right now, 50%, whatever. It's flat 50%. The armor, it's literally whether she has armor, whether she doesn't have armor, the damage is the same. The only other situation over here that affects is Ramatra when he's blocking in armor. When he's blocking in armor, the only damage reduction that is applying is the blocking. Armor literally does not matter. The armor only matters for when he's punching without blocking. So in other words, there's a hard cap of damage reduction. And that's also interesting to note. This has a small minor impact on nano boosted targets as well. Hear me out. A nano boosted Winston for his initial bit of armor and HP. Same thing with Reinhardt or any other hero with armor. Takes 50% less damage reduction, not additive or multiplicative or however it was calculated earlier with the armor and the nano boost stacking on top of each other for the damage reduction. So interesting to note, very interesting to note. Okay, let's keep going through here. So I'm gonna just give my thoughts on the changes. I'm not gonna explain exactly what has changed super in detail unless I think it's impactful. Diva change is totally fine. I'm curious about whether this is gonna do a whole lot. I still would love to see some of her power shifted a little bit away from her matrix, but I think for the most part it's okay for right now. This is definitely an interesting one where she has that invulnerability upon leaving the mech. I think it's a quality of life change, whatever. This is actually a really big change. Seismic Slam definitely feels like a longer cooldown than it actually is, so Doomfist mains rejoice. This is definitely going to help, and this is also a quality of life change. This really should be a bug fix, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't even think that this should have been a long time ago, but Echo Stickies, Cassidy Grenade now are actually going to be reduced in damage if they hit the front of your power block. This is a pretty interesting one as well, where the armor change nerf hits Orisa pretty hard, so that they're going to compensate that by increasing her base health a little bit, which I think is fine. It's just normal over health. It's not anything special. And then the damage fall off range, this is also a really nice quality of life change as well. I wish they had never ever done this in the past. I still think Orisa needs some help with her javelin. I still think Orisa needs an identity as a whole. I think her survivability as a whole is still too high with her Fortify. I still think that she should have a headshot. You should be able to headshot her while she's in Fortify if you are going to have the damage reduction so high, so that it's rewards skillful play more. Maybe we could look at javelin hitbox size. Maybe we could give her, I'm not even joking, give her the verticality with the javelin spear. Let's her javelin spin, excuse me. There's all sorts of little tweaks that they need to do with this hero. This is like an overall net positive change, but it's just like a drop in the bucket, basically. This one is a little bit of a 50-50. Obviously, the consistency with the block and stick projectiles is, I mean, it's fine. The ultimate cost increase as well. Block now reduces damage. And that's all fine. I mean, Ramatra is quite powerful, quite easy. Still, I would love to see some more work on him as a design, but I guess this is whatever. This is pretty irrelevant. This is interesting. Basically, it means that you're going to be right-clicking a little bit slower, but it takes a shorter period of time to charge up the right-click. In other words, there's a delay. You can feel the delay between right-clicks. Now, I went to the practice range, so you can't just spam right-click, spam right-click, spam right-click, but it allows you to charge up the right-click a little bit faster. Now, the reason why this is important is if you play a lot of Winston, you've probably noticed that right-click can sometimes feel a little awkward to use because it's really only good for jump combos when there's a pretty decent distance between yourself and the target, because there is a delay between right clicking and left clicking. So if you charge a right click as you're jumping, yes, even if you hit the right click, you probably should have been left clicking, right? If they're too close. But this one, because the charge time is reduced, there's going to be shorter jumps where a right click damage is actually going to be relevant as part of the combo. All right, I know it's a little bit complicated, but it's an interesting change. This one is our super weird change. The grenade is basically giga buffed. I mean, everything about it is buffed. The detonation time is really the most palpable change to me. Basically, it feels like it goes off so much faster. The maximum explosion damage fall off, basically it still does at worst 50% of its damage, obviously slightly more damage. The projectile is bigger as well. A lot of little buffs to it. It's a pretty potent ability now, so just do that information as you will. Reload time reduction, this is definitely tangible as well. The little heal when going into configuration assault is a quality of life change, and the targeting state movement speed increase. So basically what we have here is something that I would say is quality of life changes for Bastion, but don't really make him a more interesting character as a design. So I'm going to give it a, I would like for more of his character to have more dynamics. This just basically takes everything about him and buffs it. Now, it doesn't buff it in a stupid way necessarily. It's definitely something that it's more like quality of life, which I'm always okay with that. But I don't think none of this is really super impactful or interesting. Again, it feels kind of like the Orisa changes where it's like, okay, that's fine, but we still have problems. Now, this is the most controversial change, and my take on this might kind of surprise you. I actually like this change. Now, I still freaking hate Magnetic Grenade as a concept. I don't like it as a whole, the CC creep, all that kind of stuff. It's still going to annoy the crap out of the tanks like Doomfist and Wrecking Ball. It just bothers me. Now, they did reduce the slow from 30 to 25%, and there's a maximum travel time, which is, I guess, irrelevant, I guess. It's more of a cheese thing than anything else, but the slow thing is a tiny bit. But the big change here, ignoring the grenade cancer, is the base health increase and the fall off nerf. Now, the fall off nerf is a big deal. 10 whole meters closer for him to reach maximum fall off. In other words, you're going to be doing a lot less damage from Cassidy in that 35 to 45 meter range. So there's like a mid to long range, you're going to feel, whoa, I'm doing like maximum fall off damage. You're going to really feel it. It's not a major nerf, but it is a significant nerf, and he gets his 25 HP back. Now, I like this change because it actually gives Cassidy his identity back. The problem with pre-nerf to Cassidy with the 200 HP or pre-rework 200 HP and the basically like really forgiving fall off is he started to contest heroes like Ashe, Hanzo, Soldier, and so on in the mid-range category, mid to long range category, excuse me, and his identity as an anti-dive or a duelist was really quite bad. He was really squishy, and so he had a lot of problems with that. Well, now what they've done is they've said, okay, let's make this guy a little bit tankier, a little bit less easy to burst, a little bit beefier, and stronger in his niche and weaker outside of it. He's gonna be good versus flankers. He's got the extra HP. The grenade still functions as it does versus the flankers, and the flankers don't care about the fall off nerf. However, this means that he's no longer competing as much with a Hanzo, Soldier, Ashe, and so on, even Sojourn to an extent in the mid to long range category. That's what needs to happen. Now, we can still hit grenade, but I'm a proponent of this 225 HP as long as he's balanced in other aspects of his kit. He needs an identity. Now he actually is going closer towards that identity. The number one thing when it comes to balance is the characters need to be fun to play, they need to have a healthy skill curve, and they need to have an identity. What is this hero good at? Cassidy has really been flip-flopping with that recently. This is at least a step in the right direction. Hanzo, this is a huge quality of life nerf. Basically, you induct an arrow, you wall climb up. When you're wall climbing, you lose the inducted arrow. I understand why they did this, but it's a risky move. And it's a risky move to nerf something actively a quality of life change because it can feel a little bit unfun. This is good. The 130 Helix was really stupid. This is all just normal stuff. Ultimate cost increased 50%, basically. Makes EMP a little bit harder to get to. Now, this is the interesting thing. This kind of ticks me off. It bothers me with how inconsistent they are with EMP. They basically just like to basically arbitrarily decide whether it's going to be consistent or not. They recently made it cancel Orisa's ultimate because it needed to be consistent, and the same thing goes with Blizzard, but it doesn't cancel other projectile ultimate like a Tree of Life now because it's instead of treating it like a barrier. It doesn't make any sense. EMP is still super inconsistent with the way it interacts. I mean, I guess it's a huge buff to Lifeweaver, which I like. Okay, it's not a huge buff, but it's a noticeable little buff for Lifeweaver, which is fine, I guess. But I mean, if you're gonna say it's for consistency, then don't do this. This is not consistent. Torbjorn quality of life changes, nothing super crazy here, just some nice little stuff here. The recovery fire time is a big deal and by far the biggest change. I'm not a huge fan of it. I think Torb as a spam hero is definitely like, he's pretty famous for just kind of like, you just hold mouse one down a choke, and this is going to help that playstyle a little bit, which I don't know. Torb is one of those heroes that he's kind of like the ugly stepchild, but he needs a lot of work. This one is controversial. The damage reduction from 75 to 70, I think I'm fine with that. Not being able to 2-tap a Tracer, it doesn't really change any damage thresholds for anybody else. It's just a small damage nerf. I think it's totally fair to do this. They didn't touch Nade at all, which I think was a little bit of a hot take for a lot of the folks that are complaining about it. I don't think it's a huge deal because there's a lot of other supports that got some quality of life changes, which means Ana's going to kind of shift out a little bit out of the meta, I believe. But this is the really, really big one. The unscoped projectile size was increased. Now, I have not had a chance to test this one in game enough to really give a commentary on this one, but this is a really big change. Keep an eye on this one because it's going to make dueling squishies a heck of a lot easier. Making sure I'm still recording here. Okay, we're good. It's going to make it a heck of a lot easier. So how much is a heck of a lot? I don't know. That's not really a very descriptive adjective. Something to keep an eye on and practice though. This one, really strange. I think the current Brig Shield was in a pretty reasonable state. I think 300 to 250 isn't a huge deal, but I would have preferred her something like the Rally Shield to be a little bit less goofy, but whatever. Ultimate cost increased by 6%. Okay. Fair enough. Her pick rate was still really, really low because people still haven't quite figured her out. So I'm curious to see how she does moving forward. The Suzu changes are honestly fine. The cleanse giving an additional 30 HP is definitely tangible. You can notice the burst of healing that you get when you cleanse somebody who's antied. So that's kind of interesting. The knockback removed is just a quality of life change that people have to deal with that, especially divers. And then this is the really interesting one, which I actually kind of like, but I'm not sure about the recovery time reduction. 0.55 to 0.5 seconds. I understand why it was done. They did that, but she fires so fast, man. Like, she's already spammy as it is, and she fires real fast right now. Now, this is really important. 40 to 45 on body shots. Okay. Headshot multiplier reduced from 3 to 2.5. So you guys can do the math. It used to be 120. Now it's 2.5, so that's 90. That's going to be what, 112.5. So it's a slight damage reduction on the headshot, basically, which is honestly fine. The big thing is that it reduces the breakpoint. It removes the breakpoint, excuse me, for headshot melee on tracers. So it's basically, it still really rewards you for hitting headshots, but just not to as quite an absurd level. And I honestly, like, I actually don't have a big deal with this. It's still you should be hitting headshots with kunai. It's like unbelievably rewarding to hit headshots. I mean, you still have an extra 50% multiplier. So I still think I think it just makes it so that it's a little bit less, not quite as much burst. I'm curious to see what was the reasoning behind this, but I don't think this is necessarily a bad change. Now we got the big boy. Basically, we've got a 225 HP Lifeweaver with 50 shields. Big survivability buff. In addition, rejuvenating dash, 25 HP instead of 50 HP instead of 25. Big survivability buff. Mobility lockout duration, you'll have to go out and test that one, but basically there's a slightly longer lockout for mobility when dealing with life grip stuff. A little bit more consistency with there. The overhealth from the Tree of Life overhealing is a big deal. So that basically gives you like rally armor, like temporary armor around the Tree of Life, but 50% of that overhealing is given into overhealth. So basically, as it pulses, if you're already full HP, it's going to keep giving you more and more overhealth. So you know, a lot stronger of an ultimate, especially in that initial pulse. For example, you can now use it on a team that's full HP, and everybody gets basically 100 or almost 100 maximum overhealth almost instantly. And then the other one was the spread. Obviously, it's going to give a little bit more consistency with the mouse one. A lot of little quality of life changes and some net buffs. Still, do I feel like this hero is fundamentally well designed? No, I don't. But this hero is going to feel stronger. He's going to be much harder to kill. He's going to be slightly better in duels. The Tree of Life is going to be a much better ultimate. So overall, definitely a lot stronger. Would I say he's going to be strong or meta? Not necessarily, but definitely stronger. Basically now crossfade, amp it up. Healing now basically it heals them for more now. So the amp healing on yourself now is as much as your amp healing on your allies. So a little bit of survivability there. And then obviously the big juicy one, the damage boost has been nerfed. Now it's a band-aid. It's a band-aid. I feel the Mercy community's exasperation because I don't think anybody in the Mercy community really loves her damage boost or her resurrect, and yet they keep dancing around these abilities like people really love them. Mercy just needs some sort of utility. Besides that, they need to lean more into her movement or the other fun aspect of her kit. And really, this just feels like a drop in the pan. Will it break any affect any break points? I haven't done enough math on this. Maybe you guys in the comments can tell me what break points are affected by this. But really, this isn't like, I mean, really all this does is it kind of removes a little bit of the nuance that Mercy has. So now damage boost, which was the thing that you should be doing instead of just heal botting, is now a slightly less attractive. So while we don't love damage boost as a utility, it was the only utility that she had besides res. So this is like a good change in terms of health of the game, but it's actually quite a bad change for keeping Mercy an interesting and fresh hero. It's not a significant change, but it's a small step in the wrong direction and the right direction at the same time. You see what I'm saying? Something needs to change about Mercy. The hero needs more complexity elsewhere. She needs more utility. She needs more things to do because right now, again, if I was part of the Mercy community, I would be exasperated as well. There's a couple other changes as well that have to do specifically with PvE. I'll let you guys figure this one out on your own. And I didn't talk about Illari. I have a video that, if it's not already released, will be released later today about some 3 tips with Illari. The hero looks a lot of fun. Fairly impactful, also fairly difficult to play. I think you guys will have to wait and see about this character, but I don't think we're going to have a Lifeweaver 2.0. We'll have to wait and see. All right, let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Let me know what your thoughts are in the patch notes, and I'm going to keep pointing my finger because that's what YouTubers do, right, guys?